Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. Well, hey guys, welcome to yet another episode of the Higher Line podcast. This guy has dodged me for numerous years. This is Mr. Robb Tadelman.
Sir.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
This is our elected county sheriff here in my home community, McHenry County, Illinois. We're one of the collar counties of Chicago. And I've had gentlemen like him on before, no gentle ladies, just haven't met a female sheriff yet. But a lot of cool stuff I think we can talk about.
For sure.
That people don't know about. And yeah, we'll just dig right in. So just, give me the brief overview of who you are.
Yeah, for sure. So today, actually, we're just talking about is my anniversary. It was started in 2004. So I just starting my 23rd year in law enforcement, all with the sheriff's office. Started as patrol deputy and did all the cool stuff. FTO, evidence tech, SWAT team member, sniper observer, detective, and then worked my way up the ranks. The only thing that I really never was able to do was be an undercover officer and a canine handler. On the patrol side, obviously the sheriff's office has court security, corrections, dispatch. We have a lot of things, but as it relates to patrol, that was my life. I was able to do a lot in a very short period of time. And then in 2022, 21 into 22, ran for sheriff and was elected in December of 22. And I just turned my fourth year as sheriff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
That's this idea of a sheriff for people that are watching, listening. How's that different than a police chief or like a constable down in the South or something like that?
Yeah. So job functions are very similar. Sheriff is an elected position where a police chief is usually either appointed by a mayor or a village board or some incorporated area that appoints that individual. So the difference between the two is obviously a police chief has to kind of play by the rules of what that person that appointed them, their ideas are. Sheriff, when they run on their ideas, their values, what they're going to do for the county. And then it's up to them either to uphold it and match the county needs so that they get reelected every 4 years or they're out in 4 years. But a police chief, they could, if they say the wrong thing that doesn't align with, with management that, they're responsible to report to, they could be out the next day. So it's unique in that we are the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the county we serve.
I've known all the state's attorneys for the last 20 years here, and they always argue that they are.
Yeah.
I thought I'd throw that out there.
I would beg to differ on that one. So actually, if you want to get back to Constitution stuff, the coroner.
So real quick, so people say coroner, state's attorney, sheriff are constitutionally elected officers.
Correct.
So go on.
Yep. So the coroner by statute, way back in the day, has the power to arrest the sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
There's some
interesting old English stuff.
Yes,
right?
Correct. Yeah. Well, it was the shire and the reeve. That's how you get the name sheriff, right? It used to be they elected an individual or appointed an individual to look over their little shires. And he was the reeve, and it turned into sheriff. The shire reeve sheriff.
Pay your taxes.
A lot of it was
your taxes.
Pay your taxes and make sure that the neighboring shire didn't run amok on your own.
Come steal your horses.
Totally.
And hay.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. So.
So highest elected or highest law enforcement officer inside of a county.
Correct.
So just since we're talking about it, your deputies can go anywhere in the county and do their job.
Yep.
And then somebody that lives in one of the communities, villages, cities inside of the county, they have to stay inside of their village or
adjacent to.
Okay.
Yeah. So the easiest.
Adjacent to. So they're following somebody and they go adjacent.
Yeah. If let's say traffic's the easiest way that you can think about it. If you see someone for a local law enforcement agency, let's talk about Crystal Lake, largest local law enforcement agency in the county. If they see someone, conduct a traffic violation within their town limits, they can go into that next town and conduct a stop. And
damn it, I can't be like,
yeah, right. There's no free pass when you cross the city limits or whatever.
It's not like crossing the Rio Grande.
No, it's definitely not like that here. But I think the easiest way that you can see is cities and incorporated areas have sidewalks. So if you're in an area where you see sidewalks, it's probably the responsibility of the village of, city of.
It's like a little tell.
That's how it's incorporated. And then we have everything else.
Is this kind of structure we're talking about? Would somebody see that in Arkansas or Florida or Wyoming, or does each state have kind of their own framework?
It's a little bit different. You talked about constables. When you see down south, you have there are sheriffs, but then you have sometimes you'll see township police.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different. Like I know up in Wisconsin, I think there's some townships that have township police. You know, we see townships here locally, but they don't have their own local law enforcement body. So it is different. But usually if you see someone badge and gun uniform, law enforcement's law enforcement at the end of the day.
I was down in Utah. I'm trying to think of the name of the town. It's one of the highest ski resorts in Utah. It's not far out of Vegas. And slid off the road. I was pulling over to take a picture and couldn't see that it was a ditch because it was full of snow. So my truck tire kind of went off. So I had to get towed out. It was like a mile walk back into town.
Gosh.
And the guy that drove me up was the sheriff. So we're driving up and I'm looking in this truck. He drives me up in his pickup and he's got all this EMS gear in there. I'm like, what's with all the, I mean, he had like everything. He's like, I'm also the paramedic.
Sure.
I'm also in charge of the fire department. It was just one dude that was
totally
kind of like everything.
We, so I did a leadership conference in Quantico. It was a sheriff's leadership conference. And we had the sheriff from Los Angeles County, largest county sheriff's office in the United States. And we had a guy from, I think he was from Montana, and he was one of two officers in his office. And they worked like 12-hour shifts all the time, just going back and forth. And he had some ungodly, like 1,200 square miles that he was responsible for. It's crazy, right?
I know some guys out by Kalispell. I think that's Flathead County. The one of them says that there are calls he has to drive like 60 miles. And it's, you know, mountains and all that jazz. That's crazy.
Some of them have to get there by helicopter. So they have to summon someone to get in a helicopter, get where they need to go. That's, I mean, you want to talk about it on your own?
Yeah,
you go out there, you're on your own.
So, like, I remember, like, when we were working on the concealed carry bill, there's a lot of people that started talking about the idea of a constitutional sheriff, which means different things to different people. And, like, what I think some people, especially in the community that follows, like, channels like this, they want like a dude that'll be like, that's against the Constitution. I'm the last, you know, shield to protect you. Well, talk about that little.
So it's interesting. Like when we take the oath, you know, we put our right hand up and we swear to uphold the Constitution of the state of Illinois and the Constitution of the United States, right? And sometimes, like in Illinois, they're in conflict. I mean, you can see what's going on not just in our state; it's all over the place, right? And our focus is state law, right? I'm not a federal agent. My responsibility is not to enforce federal law. My responsibility is to make sure, though, that the rights that are given to you by the Constitution of the United States aren't infringed upon. When you talk about concealed carry, it gets a little weird, right? So, I mean, state of Illinois, you have to have a firearms owner ID to carry, to, be in possession of firearm and ammunition. But your Second Amendment right says that as long as, you meet the needs of the U.S. Constitution, you don't need a ID. And it's a tax, right? It's state of Illinois, it's a tax. But how do you balance those two? And I was actually having a conversation with one of our county board members last night about, like, how do you balance what is right by the U.S. Constitution with sometimes in conflict the state of Illinois Constitution? And where does that put you when people are like, well, you're a constitutional sheriff. Why aren't you doing, the constitutional law? It's like, well, I can tell you in reality, I want to do what's right. So, I mean, you talk about the Second Amendment back in, I think I was 6 weeks on the job. And that's when that new piece of legislation came in, the Protect Illinois Communities Act, PICA, the assault weapon ban, as everyone knew it, right? And right away, I penned a letter saying that I'm not enforcing this. It didn't make sense for a lot of reasons.
You guys listening, watching, if you Google it, basically there's so many facets to it, but for a lot of Illinoisans, what it means is that I could go commit a crime and he could arrest me, and hours later I'd be back out to do it again. Like that was like one of the big pieces out of that.
No, that's Safety Act. PICA, Safety Act. We can talk about that one too. I mean, I can talk for hours on that. PICA was if you had a magazine with more than 15 rounds, the assault you can no longer buy assault rifles in the state of Illinois. If you own one, you have to register it with the state of Illinois. Right. And if you don't register it, we're going to come and knock on your doors and, search your house. It was just like, it was a mess. And, at the end of the day, I think we've seen one arrest, and it's been on the books for I mean, this is year 4.
Was the arrest, was it in addition to something else?
No, it was the guy that kind of put his middle finger and tried to say that he was better than the law and drew attention to himself.
So then the governor's office said, go get him.
Pretty much, yeah. So, but I mean, for me, that was me doing what I thought I needed to do for our constituents, saying that I'm not doing, some of the legislators and governors bidding in a, let's call it what it is. It was a virtue signal law that they were trying to cater to their base at the time, where, everyone said that guns were the problem. At the end of the day, people are the problem. It's not the guns, but that's a different issue. But it didn't make sense for my office that at the time had 104 sworn police officers. That was me all the way down. And each officer is basically responsible for 100 calls. I mean, each day we handle 100 and some odd calls, right? 3 shifts. So you're talking like 33 calls a day. And on each shift is 6 guys. You tell me when I have time to do this, right? It was like one of those things where, why are we doing this? All you're doing is creating hysteria. You're appeasing half the people. You're pissing off the other half of the people. And somehow it's my responsibility to do all that, right? So when we talk about constitutional sheriff, my responsibility is to explain a law to the citizens and then, be very transparent and say, we can't do this. I'm not being, obstructionist, but I got to be honest with you. It doesn't make sense to do something that isn't what I believe, a violation of our rights.
Yeah, it's not only a legal issue; it's an ethical and moral issue.
Yeah, there's some layers that go along with that, but it's difficult.
A city, though, you have this power over the county, but Crystal Lake, their police chief could say, "I love this law. Anytime you guys get a chance, go."
That's exactly
enforce said law,
right? And then a counter argument, and I've heard it, is like, well, you're the sheriff, you can tell them what to do, and it's like then you get into this battle of, you're right, I probably can go in and say, knock it off. But is that really the relationship that I'm trying to do?
How would that go down?
It wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that one of the benefits that we do have in this county is that, we have monthly chiefs of police meetings. So all law enforcement agencies in the county, we meet once a month. The police chiefs meet once a month, talk about, legislation. We talk about what's going on in our respective areas. How can we help each other out? And we are a collaborative effort. So we really, my responsibility is the sheriff's office, a lot of the stuff that we do. And if I can support our local law enforcement agencies, what they're doing is up to their chiefs, and I'm going to do the best I possibly can to help them along the way.
Seems to be like that's the biggest problem, or a big problem with government. We have the law because the law is the thing that we balance the thing against. Does it meet or not meet the objectives of this document or documents?
Totally.
But then you can be like, yeah, I don't really give a shit, and I'm just going to do whatever.
Well, and then it's subject to interpretation, right? Because there's, nothing's ever black and white. There's always gray, and especially law enforcement lives in the gray 90% of the time. We try to figure it out, and we have to balance, is upholding this, necessarily most effective when we can do something different and make it more effective for the community and make it safer, right? And traffic enforcement, that's the simplest thing, right? When you pull a car over, usually there's 3 things that go along with it. 1, it's education, the person that you're actually meeting with. 2, it's optics to the community. They see law enforcement out and about and doing what they need to do. And then 3, it's usually prevention moving forward, right? When we have targeted areas where we have traffic details and traffic enforcement.
I think what you mean by that is specific areas that you annoy citizens.
Subject to interpretation.
I got your back.
So that's fair. But the reality is, out here last year, we saw a bunch of horrific fatal crashes, and especially in the northwest portion of our community, which is rural.
Pretty rural, yeah.
Very rural. 2-lane roads, people driving too fast on their cell phones, intoxicated, all the slew of everything, right? So, it's our responsibility to say, okay, in this stretch of road, we know we've had 5 fatal crashes in 6 months. It's like, we better address that. So we're out there, and it hopefully will deter people that we pull over. It deters them even more, but then it shows the public, hey, they really are paying attention to what's going on, and they're actually, meeting the needs of the citizens in that area. So the problem is, you try to multiply that times 100 different problems throughout the county, that our county is over 600 square miles.
Yeah.
It's difficult to manage and balance.
And the people that are paying attention to that in a positive light. We had that crash over, I don't want to say the name of the road, but that kid was speeding, come over that hill and hit that mom last year, not far from my old house. And, you know, you see the story. Basically, a guy was driving 3 digits and hit a woman head on with her kid, nice lady, beloved lady, and killed them. And people don't remember those stories. So then they see a cop on the side of the road and their immediate response is, you know, bastards are trying to fill their quota. Totally. I'm just trying to get to work. And they don't remember, you know, these horrific things.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that was a story of 2 individuals, young kids, high school kids, or just out of high school, in a Hellcat, you know, Charger Hellcat,
which is
a vehicle that, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they're fun. I've driven them. They're great. But if you don't know how to drive them, they're huge weapons. And we see what happens, right? They were not well trained in driving. They were driving like a bunch of fools, and they end up killing, like you said, a beloved mom in our community that now has kids that, how do you deal with that? How do you make that right? And everyone looks at us to try to make that right. So like you said, so then we go out and we hammer that area with, you know, 0 tolerance, basically, when you start driving like a fool. But then the response is, these guys, what are they doing? You know, and it's like, well, we're trying to, you know, correct an action. And unfortunately, you have to, you know, cater the lowest denominator. Right? You get the fools that act a fool. Well, everyone kind of, you know, feels that, but it doesn't mean we right everyone, right? Just because you see someone pulled over doesn't mean they're getting a ticket. Like I talk about, there's that education piece where a warning can be just as detrimental to someone as a ticket, you know? So, you know, I think officers use that discretion. That's that gray area that we live in that we talked about earlier. Yeah.
Liberty and freedom. I've been seeing you posting on some scholarly constitutional founding fathers stuff. Something I talk about constantly with our viewership is this idea of liberty's not for everybody. And people misunderstand me. Like, yes, it is for you. You can have it. But like, if it means I'm 10 beers in, dumping my clutch and coming over the top of hills, killing families, then clearly I can't handle it. If somebody just sent me a picture, not from here, from outside Seattle. He had a brand new Suburban. There was 3 bullet holes in the roof. Somebody was shooting into the air and pop, pop, pop. You know, they punched through. And like, okay, you can't handle this.
Right. Well, I think people use the words, you know, we have our rights, and they think that rights are guaranteed and you can use them whenever. If we kind of reframe that your rights are your rights, but it's a privilege to have those rights. You know, it's your responsibility to uphold your end of the bargain on the rights that you have. You talk about, you know, your Second Amendment right. I'm a full supporter of that. But the minute you act a fool, guess what? You kind of lost that right. You know, I think we all can agree, especially I know your community, it's all about doing it the right way. Being proficient. Don't leave your loaded weapon in an unlocked vehicle overnight so it gets stolen. That's ridiculous, right?
How often do you guys see that?
Way too often.
Yeah, people have this weird idea. It's my car, thus I should be able to do whatever I want. And you breaking the law to enter my car, I shouldn't have to worry about that. You know, let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, that's living in fantasy land, right? I think I wish we could get to a point where you didn't have to lock your cars, you know, you didn't have to lock your front door to your house and all that. But the reality is there are people out there that are just not good people, right? They're, for whatever reason, their path to, in their own minds, to success is doing evil things. And to prevent that, you know, you have to do everything. We ask our local community members to do everything they possibly can. Lock your doors. Don't leave your gun in your car. You know, don't leave valuable items just on the seat so that they walk by, they can see it. Break your window and take stuff out, right? Obvious things, but, you know, I also understand that, you know, I don't want to use the term we get lazy, but we get in our own rhythms and, you know, we get sidetracked, complacent, totally all that stuff, and bad things happen. But, you know, how do you then balance that by, you know, trying to assure that people's rights are protected, and then you do something where you become complacent or whatever, and then something happens, how do I hold that person accountable as well? Because, you know, if that gun that's now stolen goes and finds its way in the city and ends up being used in a crime, had you not even had that in the first place, that wouldn't have happened, right? So there's a cause and effect to it too. And I kind of get a little backlash for, you know, that, but I think if we upheld our end of treating our rights as privileges up to a point, I think things would be a lot easier.
That's a strange thing for people to grasp, that like it's not a privilege, it's a right. You're not giving me this.
Right.
But I think you mean it in privilege in the sense like I should feel gratitude that I live in this
Totally.
place, that these things are mine.
100%.
Civic virtue.
Yeah.
Right? It's
For
like,
sure.
I think that's the missing piece. Like it's not just, it's mine, go F yourself, I'll do whatever I want. It's, wow, this is really cool, I don't want to mess this up.
100%, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like every day I put this uniform on, or my more professional looking uniform on. I treat it like it is a privilege. It's not my right to work at the sheriff's office. It's my right to be able to apply and get a job there.
Mm.
But working in this role, I mean, outside of military, law enforcement is the most honorable profession out there. I mean, we have the ability to take people's rights away, but we also have the ability to make changes for people. And, you know, sometimes if they're in a bad spot, right? So, I mean, you talk about individuals that are arrested, they come to our correctional facility. They're, you know, given a penalty and have to pay their debt to society from a judge or a jury. But at some point in time, there's an end to that, and they have to go back out to the community that, you know, we serve, right? So how do we also help them along the way, that the minute they walk out our door, I never see them ever again?
Sure.
And set them up for success and maybe change their trajectory. So, you know, law enforcement's the first person everyone calls, no matter the problem. So the hats that we have to wear are just unlimited, especially in a day and age where mental health crisis seems to be the problem of or the root of every cause of all the problems we go
Sure.
to. Handle it within 30 minutes and then leave and then fix the problem, fix the problem while we're there before we leave. So it's really, really difficult, but being able to do that job is just, it's amazing, right? And if you're good at it, it's super amazing because you can go home at the end of the day exhausted, but really be like, I actually did something that was worth, I upheld my end of the bargain, right? I brought something to society, I contributed, and I made a difference. Don't get me wrong, they're not all rainbows and unicorn days, right? There's some really, really horrific days, and we have to do some, stuff that I don't think anyone would want to do, and those wear on us as well. But if we change perspective, and I don't think it's just for law enforcement, I think that's anything we do, any job we have. If you change perspective on it and really go under the premise that I understand what my job is. If I do it really, really well, here's the purpose, and here's why it makes a difference for people. Then if you're complaining, you're just kind of being a jerk.
Do you think that reform is needed?
I don't like to use the word reform. I think that we always should be challenging the process. I think that's, that was one of the things that, our founding fathers knew, that this experiment that we're doing, because let's be honest, every day is, I mean, this country is really an experiment, right? We wanted to get away from what we saw over in Britain. The framers are even to this day way ahead of their time. I mean, talk about one of the greatest pieces of literature of all time, is our Constitution and the way they got there. And I knew that, they knew there was going to be a struggle. And how do you balance that? I think my most recent post was that, the government is not going to be perfect because it's made of men who are not perfect.
Sure.
But how do you hold both accountable? And I think that understanding that every day is an opportunity, but every day is an opportunity to be bad as well. And how do you keep those checks and balances, together? So when you talk about reform, I think if we do a good job of explaining why a change needs to be made, that's when you bring everyone to the table. I don't think we do that now.
Who's everyone?
I think every single person is responsible, right?
Yeah.
We all bought into this.
Right.
I don't think it's just legislators. It's not your elected officials. It's, everyone that's here. If you have an idea, you should have the ability to provide, or at least, project that idea to other people, have conversations if you think it's going to be for the better. And then there should be communication, some kind of conversation to make that work out. So you ask, who's responsible? If we're going to do this right, everyone needs to be responsible. Is that reality? We all know that's not reality. We all have our daily lives.
It wasn't 200 years ago.
And so things have changed, right? So I think that when we talked about, what is the Constitution as it was written back in 1776, right? And earlier written, but it means a lot different today, but does it really? It's just how you interpret it in today's in views and terms. You know, and I think that's the problem, is we've gotten to a point, and for whatever reason, I think a lot of it has to do with how readily available information is today. I'm not saying it's correct, but it's just information or thoughts. How people will get stuck in their own echo chamber and then start going down rabbit holes and believing that this has to be this way because the people say, my group of people say it has to be this way.
Sure.
And we've lost that face-to-face interaction. We've lost the ability to, I guess, debate face-to-face, because it's easier to debate on your cell phone in the comforts of your own home. But I think, you know, how do we do that? It's, you know, you have to believe in the people that you elect to do the things that you want them to do. But I guarantee you 90% of the people don't know who they've elected.
Sure.
And they don't know what they're doing. And that's exhausting, right? I mean, we all have our jobs that most of us are 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Some of us have families, so we have another 20 hours a week of stuff that we're doing with that. There has to be some time to sleep. And you want some time to yourself too. I mean, you put that all together, how much time do you really have to
go to a school board meeting?
Right.
Yeah, any of those things.
That's exactly it. So, I mean, then you rely on people that you know who are somehow associated with that and take their word for it. Well, if that's all you're getting is that one side, that's all you're getting. And your information stream becomes, you know, very, very narrow-sided and one voice. And that's, I think, we get to where we're at today.
It's human nature, my buddy Z likes to say, to find the path of least resistance.
Sure.
Like, it's really easy to me to say it's their fault or it's his fault.
Totally.
Like, it's not so easy to go, what's my place in this big puzzle or soup or however you want to look at it. It's super easy to just, it's funny, no matter where you go. I'm not a cop, but I've got a lot of friends are. You sit and listen. I've sat on a deck with you with some of your coworkers 15, 20 years ago, and everybody's doing the same thing that a bunch of mechanics are at the Ford dealer or a bunch of carpenters are at the construction site, bitching about their boss, complaining about the job today. I'm not paid enough. Those people have no idea this or that. You know, school teachers, it's the same thing.
I know.
I'm underpaid and overworked. And then once in a while, there's a person that goes, well, what's my role in this? How can I affect something? And it's not even how can I make it better for all these people? It's just like, sitting here, I was just reading this yesterday. I don't want to misquote it. Marcus Aurelius, he said, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Like, you know, we sit and we're spending all this time like blah, 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 like, how's this doing?
Well, we always talk about, like, in managing people is the worst, right? It just is, because everyone has needs. And, you know, as a manager, if you're doing it right, you're trying to meet everyone's needs, you know, meet them where they're at. But I mean, it's hard because their needs don't always line up. And usually they're in conflict of each other. But, you know, so like that quote, I think about, you know, purpose. Everyone needs purpose. And if you ask someone and they're going to be honest with you, you say, what do you think your purpose is here? Right. And I think
I'm doing my job.
Right. But that's not a purpose.
No, it's
right?
not at all.
I know. And then you can challenge them on it. And then it gets interesting when you challenge people, like, you know, what is your purpose here? It's like, well, I'm just trying to do my job. Okay. That's not really an answer. So what is your purpose? You know, and then you think about it, it's like, well, when you rose your right hand, the day you're sworn in, you know, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, I want to drive fast, I want to put bad guys in jail, and all those answers, right? It's like, okay, that's cool, because we all were there. And now 20 years down the road, if you don't answer that, something happened in those 20 years that changed your mentality. So what was it? And are you still happy doing this job? If you're not, then why are you still doing this job? You know, and I think that's not for law enforcement. Like you said, I think every single role has that. I mean, for me, 22 years doing a job is a very, very long time. It's almost half my life that I've done law enforcement. And it's not an easy job. But I think you can say, I mean, you talk about even a mechanic, right? That's a lot of wear and tear. Someone in construction, all those works. I mean, even working in the hospitals, working in the ER for 20 plus years, that's a lot of hard work.
Not to mention the mental side of some of those jobs.
And the weight that carries on you, you know, through the years. So I get it. But then at what point in time do you self-reflect and say, man, I'm kind of acting like an asshole right now, you know? And maybe it's unhealthy. Maybe we have to say, this job isn't for me anymore. I have to, you know, for me as a manager, maybe I have to help you transition into another role. And what can I do to get you to transition? Or maybe it's out of the profession as a whole. All right, what is it that you want to do? How can I help you or facilitate or try to facilitate you get into that other position? Because like you think about it, we're here a very, very short amount of time, right? I mean, if we're lucky, we get 100 years on this.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, you and I burned half of it at least.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, right? So why be angry all that time?
Don't tell me what to do.
Right?
It's a weird thing
Right?
to hold on to.
And I saw in our world, we talk about, so I'll talk about two things. We hate change, but we hate the way things are even more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you get that, and then you combine that with, it's just that mentality of holding on to things that happened 20 years ago. So especially my role, I've had the privilege of working under Sheriff Prim, who was right before me, and Sheriff Nygren, who, when I was a rookie, he swore me in. So I worked under two different sheriffs, totally different regimes. And, the minute I get into office, I'm held accountable for what happened under both those sheriffs, because a lot of those individuals work for both of them. And, you try to go in, you want to talk with your staff, try to understand really what's, what was good, what's bad, what's indifferent. And you try to make little moves. But then people will say, well, 20 years ago, this happened. I'm like, I can't fix what happened 20 years ago. And if you're going to hold on to that, you'll never be happy.
Right.
Right. And it's like, well, I've seen this before. I know how this goes. Like, no, because I'm doing it. You've never seen me do it. Right. And I think it's difficult because we hold on to things, and me included, right? Going through election process is awful.
Mm-hmm.
And, continuing to hold grudges after the fact, it's hard to let go.
I bet it would be difficult to spend 10, 15, 20 years where somebody's your equal, and then not only are you their boss, but you're like the boss. That's got to be hard. Not even from like a jealousy standpoint, but you also, like, you could have been like fishing buddies, but now today I got to demote you or fire you or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not even be that drastic. Just, give you a talking to.
Totally interesting. Like, the minute you become a sergeant, you're automatically like, you can be best friends. Once you get those stripes on, it's like, admin, get the hell out of here. It's like, man, I just drank with you last night.
Right.
It is weird. But I think, for me, it's lay out the expectations, hold people equally accountable, and let them do their job and stay out of their way, right? And know that when you need support, we'll be there to support you. When you screw up, we'll hold you accountable just like we held everyone else accountable, but we'll move on. It's nothing personal. You got it, and you really got to build that trust through people, and it's not easy. I mean, anytime I've been in trouble before, and it's always like, you get pissed, but I think is for at least our administration, our regime, I don't have time to go out and hunt for people, try to, get them jammed up. If they don't enjoy doing it,
do your job.
That's just it, right? And then if you screw up, acknowledge it, and let's move forward, right? It's not you get a written warning in your personnel file, big deal.
No one really cares about it. So silly. Like I said, I've seen this in every place I've ever spent any amount of time. And you could go to a ski resort and walk into the lodge and find all the ski hill employees sitting in the corner at the end of the day, and you will hear the same damn conversation.
Yep.
Or beach people. So it's like the human dynamic, like shepherds at night around the fire.
Yeah.
These freaking sheep are
right.
appreciate it.
Totally. And it gets frustrating because that's sometimes when you're on an admin level, you just hear about the complaints. And then when you don't hear anything, you're like, all right, things are going good, right? You never get someone come in your office and say, hey, boss, I just want to tell you everything's amazing. And then they leave. You just don't get it.
And if they did, you'd be like, whoa, is that guy on drugs?
What does he mean, right?
Right.
Totally. And it's interesting because I would imagine, I only know the law enforcement world, right?
You know humans, though.
But I do. And so my wife's she's in the public sector, the private sector, and she's in, she's in management, and her stories are just like mine. We always talk about, how do you lead with empathy? How do you try to lead people and meet people where they're at and lead alongside? It's all the same stuff. So we're all dealing with, it's human nature. It's like you had said earlier, it's easier to complain and bitch about things than, look at yourself and say, yeah, I'm just not good enough. I've got to get better.
Hmm.
Self-reflect. And, you know, I rip on my youngest daughter all the time. She's like, she has this victim mentality sometimes. And I say, well, so you're going to be the victim role, or are you actually going to do something about it? And then we'll have a back and forth, and she's my wild child. And, you know, it's always someone else's fault. I'm like, okay, well, when you decide that it's going to be your problem, let me know and I'll come back to this conversation. Right. My oldest, who's like the straight A student, and she's, you know, she's this little angel. Um, she'll right away, she'll be like, I screwed up. And even if she's like they're both competitive cheerleaders, right? And she'll talk about someone that, you know, didn't pull their weight. And I looked at her and she goes, I know. We'll get her back, and you know, I gotta go. We'll go talk with her or whoever it is,
Mhm.
right? And be like, hey, how can I help you? What can we do to get this better? Because we're all doing this together. So she's gotten a little bit further, and she's older, a little bit more mature. But the younger one, I mean, it's that mentality of, you know, oh, I can't believe this person did that. It's like, first of all, what does it matter to you what they did? How does that affect you on a daily
Mhm.
basis, right?
Mhm.
And two, if they did something that you don't agree with, did you talk to them about it? Maybe they don't know they're doing something wrong either, right? And I think it's just easier to cast blame than it is to have uncomfortable conversations with people. And I think,
Patterns of thought and patterns of communication that we develop. I've got friends, I sit with them, and I know within 30 seconds, one of them's going to go, hey, did you hear about?
yeah,
And it's just like, come on, man, like,
right,
you're breaking
right,
this guy's chops. Like, I was about to ask you how your mom's doing.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And not that I don't do that, and I'm, you know, not
We're
that
all
I'm always,
guilty of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's like, it just becomes like the mode of communication. It's a waste of life. My friend Z, again, he says, he's from the South. He says, people gonna people.
That's
People gonna people.
that's about as accurate as you can get. I
You're
mean,
gonna do people stuff.
and that's just it. I mean, it's just we're so unique, right? And there's no two people that are exactly the same. And you could be with friends. I'm sure you have friends where you've grown up with in your whole life, and then something will happen. You're like, I never knew that about that person.
Yeah, probably. I cut people loose pretty easy.
Sure.
Not that I'm like heartless, but like I mean, if you're not good for me, and I don't mean like what do you bring to the table for
No, I
me,
get
but
it.
like, you know, if it's like, I mean, I'll sit around people and I'll listen to them, and it's like, dude, like, there's a guy, you probably met him. He's a retired FBI guy from Crystal Lake. His name's Bob. I won't say his last name just because he likes to be private, but he was standing around a group of people at a political thing once, and he's always dressed perfectly, and
Mm-hmm.
he sticks his head in, and he goes, and just turns and walks away. I walked over. I go, what was that? You didn't even say hi.
Yep.
And he said a bunch of lowbrow BS that had like zero value for any of us.
Sure.
Like, why would I stand there when I could go over there and talk
100%.
to Rob or something?
Yeah.
And he didn't say anything. He didn't, you know, break anybody down. But he was just like, I saw it his face, like, like, you know, like,
Well,
like he tasted something bad and put it back on the
it's your
table.
ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
You know what you can operate, and you know where you want to operate. And if someone's bringing you down, it's like, why would you carry that weight?
Mm-hmm.
It means nothing to you.
Mm-hmm.
Or call them out on it.
Sure.
Which I've learned, like, as I've gotten older in this role, a little bit more mature in this role, a little more confident. I don't mind calling people out. I obviously do it, and, you know, I don't call them out in front of a bunch of other people, but it's like to pull them aside and say, what's the deal? Why
Says a lot about them.
Yeah.
How they respond.
Well, or maybe they don't even know. And sometimes when you call people out, they're like, man, I don't. Or you find out something's going on, and you can help them get back on the right path too. But we've lost that a little bit, I think, in, you know, especially after COVID. I don't know what the hell happened with people. They're all cooped up, and then they forgot how to talk to people.
I have to be cautious sometimes. I mean, people, plenty of times they'll tell me you're being a jerk or whatever. And I'll have to think, like, am I, or are they an a-hole? You know, like who are they that's the
Sure.
arbiter of what's right? You got to respect the person, which means that you have to be like a good enough sounding board
Yeah.
to be able to
Well, and I
hold
think
that mirror up.
And I think, you know, sometimes if you come across just very matter of fact, people will take offense to that because they'll think like, what a jerk. And it's like, hey man, I got no time for feelings right now. I'm just going to tell you how it is. It's no disrespect to you, but there's 8,000 other things that are on my mind right now, and I knew I needed to get this off my chest, right? And I think sometimes just that, they're like, oh, then they have to look at themselves. Am I being the jerk, right? Because of how I reacted. I mean, I just like the way my mind goes. I mean, it's just constantly going. It's one of the hardest things I've had to try to manage is just
That,
learning
like,
to shut it off. No, it got worse as I got in this position. I think when it actually probably wasn't until I got in a management role when I just worried about myself. It was kind of just like worrying about myself. And then you have kids and then things start happening. But definitely like this role, my mind is just, it's a million miles an hour just thinking about laws, the office, personnel, and then family gets in there a little bit. And then I have to worry about myself every little bit, and it never stops. And I think trying to balance all of it, it's really, really difficult. But I'm also trying to, I'm not one that is stagnant. I'm always looking for another way we can challenge. And especially in government work. I mean, you've been around long enough. Government's it's like a big machine that it just seems to roll.
I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday, that it's totally important. For example, I hate dealing with building inspectors, but it's pretty cool that we don't have houses burned down every week or neighborhoods. And some of the things, like some of these, like we've just got a new safe storage gun law here in Illinois, and people are like, that's dumb. And it's like, well, it exists because I have a Google search thing that gives me articles across the country, and it's like daily that some 3-year-old shoots himself in the face. And the argument is, well, that's not my kid, right? But that's like why we have speed limits and all of these things.
Totally.
What was I going with that? Shoot, I totally lost my
government's machine.
Oh yeah. Like, then you get this job in health department or sheriff's office or wherever. All the things you just said, I got to pay my kid's braces bill next week. I need to have this job.
Right.
Thus, I need to create value for me to be here.
Totally.
I got to do stuff. I got to write bills. I got to write legislation. I got to, do all the things that I need to be here. That's like a weird thing. Like, I've got a friend that left the fire service after 20 something years. He was out on the west side of the county and probably the best paramedic anybody could hope for. Super skilled guy. He was in management, and he was like the last dead kid he could handle. And he's like I'm done. Like, I already sleep like an hour a night. And he went and got a new career and is still like in his late 40s, and was just like there's only so many of these things I can do. Then on top of it, get summoned into the chief's office because some junkie punched his female coworker in the face, and he held him down, and it's all on camera, and it looks totally awful. But I mean, it looks, he did the right thing. He did nothing that was off of what he should have done. But he gets to lay in bed at night and think of all of these horrific things, and then he protects his female partner. And that was like one of 1,000 times that this happened, probably in the last 6 months. And the public's like, this particular person's a horrible individual that shouldn't be out here.
I know. Well, because they see like the 2-second clip of a 30-minute incident. And if they watch the whole thing, I would guarantee you 99% of the people are like, why are we debating this? He did exactly what we expect him to do, right? And I think, that's the other, issue that we have in today's society, with everything being so open, so free, so transparent, so readily accessible, but you never get the full story. And we want immediate satisfaction on information, right? And I think when it's wrong, we're already on to the next thing. And we've already, in public court, we've already, hanged the person. They're already guilty. God forbid we actually pay attention. I can give everybody a
really good example where I don't normally do this. I don't just share like news clips and stuff just for no good reason. This one was a town that I was born in Oklahoma, and it was recently. And it infuriated me when I saw it. Our last state's attorney, Pat Keneally, is a friend of mine, and I've talked to him about this stuff constantly. But it was a high school boy that raped a couple girls and ended up getting community service. And apparently there was like tons of evidence. And this was just like last month, there is a reporter there as this, he's now 18, leaving the courtroom with his mother, and this reporter's going, why'd you rape those girls? Why you rape those girls? You know, like really like giving it to him, and the lights are flashing and the kid's just trying to walk out, his mom and lawyers. And I shared it, and basically my idea was like, do you know who your judges are, your elected officials?
Sure.
Because they're the ones that prosecute all this. Well, I share this, and a friend of mine from out there calls me and goes, hey, did you see me in that video you shared? This guy's an old copper from Oklahoma City that like knows everybody. He was the chief prosecutor for that for that county after he left the police department. And I watched it again. I was like, oh crap, I didn't see that. I like, you know, whatever. I go, what were you doing? He goes, well, the defense attorney asked me just to come to, you know, kind of be this kid's bodyguard because he knew stuff was going to get sideways. This guy's in his 60s, super slick dude. You'd love him. And of course, he can't like tell me anything detailed, but he was in the courtroom the entire time. He's a lifelong homicide cop and prosecutor. He goes, Mick, this is how he talks. He goes, Mick, it really sounds like, you know, it's not the way you say. Just I challenge you to, you know, read through it a little bit more. Basically, it sounded like it was some consensual stuff, and these girls decided that later they were mad at him. And because they were children, none of this stuff was released. But these girls, like, there's all these text messages and stuff that the courts saw, and the jury and the judge. And so this kid didn't get jail time. But emotionally, me and millions of other people saw it, and we're like, F this kid, you know, and people are like, I hope that, you know, he gets street justice. But the truth is, he was a kid messing around doing some stuff with a couple high school girls that they all were probably doing improper things for their age. But he didn't do what he was accused of. But emotionally, and like you said, all of a sudden 2 days later, it's like, yeah, whatever. And his life is toast. And that's the end of that. That's very scary.
And how often, I mean, multiply that times 100 times a day. Right. And that's the world we live in.
Sorry for the lengthy story.
No, but you're exactly right. And I mean, that's that whole accountability thing, right? And how do we hold people that, you know, I'm not saying that you need to be held accountable, but how are we holding ourselves accountable when something like that goes out?
I posted some stuff on there that kind of like told that story, but you know, by then nobody's going to go back.
No one cares about it, right?
Yeah, nobody's going to read all that. You get that like hit of F that guy, and that's
it.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that's what, I mean, really, we are living like in a meme world, right? And the meme doesn't even have to be correct. It just either has to be funny or align with our values at that time. For some of us, you know, we see a lot of people that their values just seem to, you know, go with the wind. Wherever the popularity value is, they will go with that one.
That's true.
Which is, I mean, that makes for a very, very difficult society to live in.
Some of the stuff I see, I just saw something today somebody shared. It was a horrific crime, and people were like, and it was like kids are dead, and like the stuff was like, I know sometimes that there is a certain kind of dark humor for people to deal with things. ER nurses, paramedics, cops. You know, it's a defense mechanism to deal with the. But this was just like people just flippantly commenting, and it's like, man, children are dead.
Well, and you think like they probably have. Well, they had parents, right? They have brothers and sisters. They have aunts and uncles that all are grieving, and I don't care how bad of a situation. It's still a bad situation. Right. And I think we lose a little bit of, as long as the crime fits what we think was, you know, either street justice or justifiable, we tend to forget that there are still people that are involved with it. You know, and that's like, for me, that weighs on my shoulders then. You know, when you try to control chaos, when you have things that, you know, don't seem right in the public eye, but like you mentioned earlier, they may not know, the public doesn't know all the facts, but some of the facts have to be preserved for justice reasons. So how do you balance trying to bring your community at ease when they aren't, knowing that the true information would, but you can't release it?
So now we live in this world where you just said, maybe you've got some data that would change the public's opinion, but you can't release it because pending court stuff going on. Well, damn it, I want it. Freedom of Information Act. I got to know everything right now. It's a strange thing, man. Like, I mean, there's this thing that just happened up in Minnesota. I mean, there is 87 billion gigabytes of footage of the same, you know, 100 square feet of street now all over the internet forever and always. And of course, everybody's crime scene investigator, a ballistic expert, use of force expert,
Yep.
blah, blah, blah. And how can anybody ever have a fair shake?
It's difficult, and it's interesting. So you talk about FOIA. One of my initiatives this year is I'm hell-bent on fixing FOIA, right? Freedom of Information Act.
Who did that?
And
was that Obama?
I don't know where it actually started. And actually, I don't mind like the ideology of it, of how it started. I mean, it forced governmental agencies to be transparent, but I think the majority of that was for budgeting reasons, right? Is if you're spending taxpayer dollars, taxpayers should have the ability to come in and audit and see what you're spending money on.
Sure.
It's their money. And I think, I would imagine almost every single person would agree that that's probably, like in an academic world, that's a great idea. But in 2025, FOIA has gotten to a point where
we're in 26 now. Huh?
Well, but I'm talking about 25. Okay. Like my year. Thank you. Well, how long are we into this? It took you to rip on me. That's pretty good, actually. I think I made an hour. So
is that how you feel?
No, I don't. Trust me, I have thicker skin than that.
I mean, that wasn't a rip. I just thought I've written 2 years back on a check before.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. I haven't done that one yet. When I start quoting 2020 stuff, we'll hold that one up. But so for 2025, year of 2025, the sheriff's office did 125,000 minutes for FOIAs.
Now, what minutes?
Like work.
So like literally, so if I took 125,000 divided by 60, like.
It was more than 2,600 hours of government employee work to fill FOIAs.
How many hours?
Over 2,600 hours.
Holy crap!
And the majority of them come from people that say, "I want all of your body cam footage from this week."
How do you even get it to them? Is it just like a Dropbox file?
There's different ways, but I mean, and then those individuals will go on their YouTube channels, post these videos, and be experts on use of force, or some of them just make fun of people, right? And then they get subscribers. They get people that are going to, they'll have commercials, and they'll get, other ways to make money. And they're making money off of work that we're doing that has nothing to do with FOIA. So, I mean, there's levels, right? So we can talk about the expense that, the sheriff's office has on that.
I know some people that are, I've never done it, but I know people that constantly are FOIA-ing things for various reasons, like legal, people and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a request, or I can just say I need this.
You just need it.
Okay. That got changed because you used to have to like fill a form out.
Well, you still have to have a form, right?
Okay.
But you don't have to put your name.
Not. Oh, really?
Mm-mm. You can put a fake name in there. You just have to have an email address where we can email it back.
That's kind of like don't need an ID to vote.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's a whole different story. But yeah, I would agree. I mean, you think about all that, and sheriff's office has a monetary expense, manpower expense. How about the people that are involved in it? You talked about earlier about, giving people a fair shake before they even get to the courts. So let's say I know I'm a victim of a crime, and I know there's body cam of me and this guy fighting, a cop and a guy fighting that has nothing to do with the crime, maybe a fighting in the arrest. They FOIA it and put it out, and now they show this guy fighting with cops. Well, don't you think the public's going to assume anything else that he's accused of, he's got to be guilty of?
Yeah.
Right? But does it give that guy a fair shake in court? I mean, and I'm not trying to stick up for the people that
think about that. You see all this crap on YouTube, like this man finding out his daughter just died in a car wreck, and
right?
Some guy on his hands and knees. And
yeah.
Like you don't even think about where that comes from.
Right.
But that's somebody just FOIAing random stuff.
Right.
And then they just search it to find something that will get views. That's crazy.
And then think about like in that same video, there's obviously a victim of a crime or something like that. How are we protecting that person? It's just there's a lot of layers to it that are difficult, and I don't think they're productive.
This idea of like the Constitution says this and that's it is interesting because, of course, body cameras didn't exist,
right?
Photographs didn't exist, and I know we're constantly the legal system that is constantly looking at how this stuff applies as our world changes. I believe it was Jefferson who said that the living gets to make these rules, right? I think he wanted like every 18 years, 20 years, he thought it should all just get clean
The
slate.
purge.
Yeah, you go ahead and write it. You write the Constitution you want.
Sure. I think, I think a lot of that, I mean, technology has changed so much, and tomorrow is going to be challenging yesterday. And I think that when we try to figure out where is the balance in it, I mean, at the end of the day, what happens to someone in a criminal case that has no effect on you? What do you really care about it other than you being nosy, right? It gives you some form of entertainment, but does it give you really any value?
That is interesting. I mean, so here's the answer I would expect from a bunch of people. It's none of your effing business, cop. I want to look at it, right? It's not your right to tell me. And that's true too, but I think more of a maybe spiritual look at that is like, but like, can I not talk about it? Like,
And you can. So then, I mean, and I've heard that. It's like, well, what's it matter to you what I look at? It doesn't matter to me. What productive work are you doing with it? Are you going to create hysteria? Or are you actually going to take something and learn from it and try to, build on it? And that's that half glass full, like the optimistic view of everything. And I know it's pie in the sky, but could you imagine like if you saw news and it was like, here's all the good things that happened today, right? Can't we just change that? Why are we so freaking angry? Why are we so pissed off at each other? And
people try it.
Yeah.
They don't want to watch it. I was just in the barber shop before I saw you.
Looks good, by the way.
Thank you. He's always got Fox on. And I don't really watch the news, but, I'll look at it for a minute. And this is 8 hours a day, just.
Yeah.
We had my friend was here the other day. He listens to, when he was alive, Rush Limbaugh all day. Alex Jones, he's on Alex Jones all day. And he listens to that. I'm like, man, you just like ready to punch a hole in the wall, I bet.
I pay no attention to the news. Probably to a detriment because everyone's like, did you hear this happen? I'm like, no, I really don't care. It doesn't bother me. Like I get my updates on my work phone when shit happens.
You know what's happening in the sphere of influence that you've got to.
And that's just it, right? And that's the other thing I learned early is I stay in my lane. I don't get involved in social issues. I mean, if you want to have a beer and you want to talk about it, behind closed doors, I have no problem. I love talking about that. But, when I was running, I was always asked, what's your stance on abortion? I said, my stance as the sheriff has nothing to do with that. Why are we talking about that in my role?
So what if the state tried to change a state law on abortion and it fell on you? Would you have a moral
different story, right? And I think I try not to put my personal views in, like in this case. So if legislators start passing a law that it's incumbent on law enforcement to enforce like abortion, anti-abortion or abortion policies, I pull myself on an emotional aspect and I say, here's what the law does to the sheriff's office in McHenry County. Here's your expectations. Here's how it affect, my staffing, ability of what we're going to do, people's rights, trust in the community, how we're, making another polar decision that half the people are going to love me, half the people are going to hate me. And you're pinning a piece of legislation is pinning my role against the people, right? So
how does that differ than things like the PICA or Safety Act?
It doesn't. That's why I write those pieces, right, where I talk about, this piece of legislation is garbage. Here's why. It doesn't make sense. So, I mean, we can go back to PICA. And actually, I'm glad you brought that back up. So the other portion, when that piece of legislation was passed, was that it was in the cloak of darkness, like they always do, right? In the late hours, and it just gets through. And I saw that. Good job, by the way.
Looked like I peed myself.
But during that same legislative session, they passed a piece of legislation that dictated how the Department of Human Services, what their responsibility was for individuals that were currently in jail that were found unfit to serve trial. So unfit is like someone goes in front of a judge and the judge is like, I need a fitness hearing. I need someone to come in to ask you questions to see if you even understand what the process is. And I think we all can agree when you're accused of something and you're sitting at the defense table, you should know what's going on in that courtroom for justice to be served, right? If you don't know what's going on, how do we hold you accountable for it?
Sure.
So that's that fitness standard. So when a judge feels like there may be a question on that fitness standard, a doctor comes in and has a set of questions to find out where that person is in life. If they're fit, they go back to trial. If they're unfit, then it is the responsibility of Department of Human Services to find you a bed to get fit, right? So let's say the state of Illinois has 102 counties. All of us are responsible for jails. All of us are responsible for housing people. The state of Illinois has approximately 2,000 beds for people that are not fit to get fit. The state is running anywhere from 200 to 300 shortage of beds at any given time. So on an average, that means every county is housing 2 individuals that are unfit in their jail waiting for a bed. So prior to 2023, January 2023, Department of Human Services had 20 days to find that individual a bed. Well, they weren't being able to meet their needs because of the shortage of beds. Well, there were several sheriffs that put together a lawsuit against the state saying, it's your responsibility. Why are you putting it on us than something that you're supposed to be holding? So instead of, the way to fix that lawsuit was they changed the law. They went from
literally wrote in that
they changed it from 20 days to 60 days to place someone with 30-day extensions and no reason for an extension. Right?
So it can just
right.
Yeah.
But so that's, I mean, when I was talking about the PICA law, when I was talking about I'm against this,
there's lawyers for you.
Well, and legislators,
who are almost always lawyers.
Some of them are, some of them aren't, but that's a whole separate story. But it also opens the door to have this conversation. When I have this conversation, I'm like, so what do we need to address more? The gun problem in the state of Illinois, that I can count on probably one hand the amount of crimes that are committed by legal gun owners that are doing lawful acts that committed crimes. But you want to address this because of virtue signaling. Or I can actually show you 200 to 300 individuals that are rotting in jail cells because we're not addressing the problem. And I'll get the look. I'm like, that's reality. But no one knew that other law was passed because we made a bunch of noise about this other one because it seemed to fit, whatever agenda we were doing or, the narrative that we were trying to run, and we brushed it under the rug. So, I mean, for me then to say, and I don't even know how we got onto this topic, but, for me then my role, I'm very matter of fact about that Second Amendment. It allows me to open the door to talk about this other issue. And then it also allows me to try to come up with a solution to that issue as well, right? So, we're fortunate. Our community is very, very fortunate. So McHenry County is population, the 6th largest county in the state of Illinois. On a per capita crime, we're the safest of the top 10. It's not even close.
Mm-hmm.
And then, on a per capita basis for the whole state, I mean, we're within the top 10. And you think about rural communities where nothing happens, it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I attribute that to a lot of good men and women that are out there that are doing good work out there to keep our community safe. But we also are fortunate to have a correctional facility that we have a contract with a healthcare provider that does a good job. We have the ability to treat individuals on a humane level that, when I talked about earlier, our job is to make sure that when they're in custody, we get them to a point that when they leave custody, they never come back. Whether it means job placement, GED, mental health, physical health, whatever. So taking all that information in and knowing what we can do as a community, why don't we bring individuals that are in other jails that don't have that ability, contract with the state, provide them that resource, maybe even restore them within the facility, or at least hold them until a bed opens up to relieve, the other efforts. Well, I say all that, but that was probably 5 minutes I had to talk about that. Do you think anyone's listening on media or social media about that? And how do you get that, that message across? And how do you say, damn, that McHenry County, they always do all this cool shit. They're always doing really, really good things, but no one knows about it, because how do you get that message out? This is a very boring story about good stuff that we do.
I don't think it's boring at all. I think people don't really pay attention to enough of the lunacy of government. You've got to look at specific things to fix it, right? You can't just look at like a big storm of a mess and fix that. You got to kind of pick something, and this is just one of those things.
Right.
And our state is a very good example of a dysfunctional.
Oh, totally.
I mean, every state's got it, but like Indiana, which is a bordering neighbor is such a more responsible and organized place. It's
Yeah, I know. So I mean, when we talk about what keeps you up at night, it's like all those things. It's like how many problems like in law enforcement world can I try to fix? You know, I'm just thinking about that, and that just constantly running, and that's on a big scale. That's not even how do we streamline the things that we're doing in the office as well.
I spent years involved in helping people get elected to office, and eventually, the more I thought about it, the amount of time spent would have been much more profitable to help younger people, not talking about myself, but just younger people develop into better citizens, right? Of course these things matter. You need a sheriff, you need a state's attorney, you need judges, you need all of these things, but like the amount of touch that person has to the kid in third grade,
Yeah, totally.
or whoever, and I'm not even just talking about children, but it's like what really matters is what you do, like in your neighborhood, at your freaking job.
Well, I mean, you think about it. So I only had a primary in 2022, and my primary election cost the Republican Party as a whole, right? So myself and my opponent collectively, we raised just shy of $700,000 for a primary,
Which is individuals all, when it comes down to it.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, and that was like my introduction to politics, right? Because I did nothing in politics. And, to think about like, I don't want to say it's money wasted, but I mean, can you imagine how many good things we could do with all that money where it's like, why don't we go back to the, and I'm sure it was always the case, but why isn't it just, the heavyweight battle of here's what I can bring to the table. Let's answer some questions in front of a forum. And let's have the people there sit there and pay attention and then, go from there. You talk about how do you get people involved? How do you get people educated? Like that whole process, you learn a lot, right? You learn a lot about what an office does. You learn a lot about what people are doing. You learn a lot about the challenges, but you have to have 2 hours of vested interest to be able to sit there and learn about that. How do we do better at maybe articulating all the things like what we do in the office on quick clips of, when you're scrolling at night and you see you have 15 seconds, like blurb, here's what we did, next, move forward, and keep educating the public in a way that they're learning more about what's going on, but not, and maybe giving them tools to kind of get involved or educate themselves on it. But, it's hard to get that message across. And it's just not, at 8 o'clock in the night, I don't really want to learn about legislation, right? I'd rather learn about some golfer who swung a club and hit some dude in the head that went errant right and laugh about it. Because it makes
for you.
Sometimes.
That's fun.
I mean,
are you a golfer?
Well, I golf. I'm not as good as I was after I had kids. It was difficult. But I like sports, any sport. You name it, I'll do it.
I can't tell by looking at you.
Yeah, very unathletic.
You said I was going to bust your chops. Do you do pull-ups?
I do.
Do you like physical fitness? Do you think that police should be physically fit?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. I think that. So that's one of my initiatives that I'm trying to figure out how to do. So we talk about wellness. For me, wellness is a lot in the gym. Eat healthy and, be physically fit. I think a lot of positive life events come from being healthy and physically fit. But I know that's not for everyone. And what physically fit for me is may not be physically fit for someone else. Maybe just mean different. So I know there's, what we talked about earlier, there's a mental aspect to our job that just wears on us. So how are we in a right mental state when we show up for work? And then when we leave, how are we still, in a good spot? And then financially as a whole, another issue too, right? As young cops, we were talking about earlier, first thing it is, you buy a motorcycle. It's like, why the hell are you buying a motorcycle?
Yeah.
Save money. Don't be an idiot. But young cops, that's what we always do. Boat, motorcycle, chicks, crash a car.
Sounds like Miami Vice.
Yeah, it's totally Miami Vice. Don Johnson, right? So I mean, for me, I think if I can find a space where when you're at the job, I mean, because we talk about requirements of the job, I think the public is not really interested in seeing individuals that are sloppy in uniform. right? I think, and I know there's data out there to show that if an individual shows up, uniform, it looks good, they look physically fit in that uniform, that's their first level of force. Already someone's gonna be like, I'm not gonna fight with that guy. That looks like a bad idea, right? But if you show up, your gig line's off, right? Your belt's off. It looks like your gun's dusty.
Get some mustard on your tummy.
Totally, right? And it's like, that one I may be able to outrun, or maybe I can fight this guy. So that's a job requirement. Well, why aren't we doing work that makes us like train, that makes us better for our job while we're at our job? I mean, yes, I take, certain pride in being physically fit, and I do that outside of work. But if I can bring that space to while I'm working, so when you're not working, you can enjoy your life, trying to figure that out. I think the fire world has it better, and I'm super jealous and envious of a lot of my fellow firemen and firewomen that, they, when they're not handling calls, they can be, doing something in the firehouse, right? Working out, catching up on some sleep, preparing food and eating. Because the fire world doesn't drive down the street and spray houses with water to make sure they don't catch fire, right? We don't have that luxury. But where do you find that type of work, like that type of training to fill your day and still meet your mandate of being out on the road? Usually either means longer days or figuring out shifts, more manpower to cover for when you're off. That's difficult, right? And I think I
know though, like what you eat
100%
is huge.
Sleep.
What you drink or don't drink, sleep. And then like you could literally make a pretty fit body in like 20, 30 minutes a day.
100%, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we work 8-hour days and we cover the road 24 hours a day, you have 3 shifts, where do I have 30 minutes of a gap to be able to get that in, right?
That's not my problem.
I've been very helpful with this process.
No, but I mean, so like everything's a choice, right? And I'm not providing any great depth of knowledge here. If I don't want to be a fat slob, then I either need to do it before I go to work,
right,
after work, or instead of sitting on my phone during my break time, I'm doing air squats in the parking lot. And like
I don't disagree with you, but is that realistic though?
Well, I mean, that I think is pushback on what maybe is the most logical approach, though. I like this idea of do a little, a lot. I'll do 100 to 200 push-ups a day, 100 to 200 air squats a day. It could be I'm pumping gas. All right, I'm going to knock out 40 air squats before the pump gets to.
And then everyone's looking at you, be like,
I don't care.
This guy's got to take a crap.
I put a luchador mask on while I do it. I don't care. I'll go to. I got a jump rope in the truck. I've got a couple of rubber bands. Sometimes I've got a 50-pound sandbag in the back of the truck, depending on where I'm at. And I take that sandbag. I can do overhead presses. Whatever. And that's like, it's not like, ooh, I've got to get this done. But the alternative is you get out of the truck. For me, I drove 54,000 miles last year.
Oh.
So, 6 hours, 8 hours to the next fuel station. I'll pull over. I've got to the point like 3 hours, pull over, 25 jumping jacks, just because it's bad to keep sitting.
Totally.
I don't want to get blood clots and stuff.
You're losing your mind too.
Right. And I might just stop for 2 minutes. But like how many guys do you know or have met that like, oh, I tackled this dude and my rotator or my bicep, and it's like, oh, that guy's totally fit, like gym fit, I'll say, or maybe he's not fit and he had to do this one thing where a guy grabbed him, and maybe it's not even police stuff. I was trying to get my boat on the trailer and my freaking, my knee blew out or my back blew out. To me, it just doesn't make good sense.
Right. No, I agree with you. I think, functional fitness is something that I think is, you have to do movements that make sense for the profession you're in. Right? I mean, how many firemen do you know when they're lifting someone up, all their lower backs are
they
just
blow their back.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, I think, I guess I'll introduce the thing that I get made fun of the most, right? So I live in the CrossFit world, so I drink the CrossFit Kool-Aid.
Stupid.
Right? I know we work out with our shirts off. It's
Let me
awesome.
see if I got some Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I know. And it's totally that. But as far as functional fitness goes, I mean, the reality is it's moving under stress, under fatigue, and consistent movement so that, normally we don't have to do that. When you just go and do a short stint of something, you're prepared for it, right? And I think...
Dude, we just had a guy on. He was the top 5 or 6 in the international CrossFit. Like 5 times, and he's won the last 3 or 4 tactical games.
Yeah.
I mean, like
just yoked.
One arm pull-ups while he's shooting a pistol. Yeah,
totally. It's like
ridiculous.
It's like, all right, I want to make fun of you, and he's probably really nice too, right?
Which is he's a machine.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I kind of want to be something like that.
He's a machine.
But I mean, don't you think that if you were to poll the public and show him that body type, and then show him a guy that's 5'4", 380,
who do you want to come save your family?
100% of the people will be like, I'm kind of scared of that guy, but that's who I want, right? We all want RoboCop to show up, and they all want him to be. But then when he shows up, we also want him to be officer friendly too, which is interesting in that balance. But I think, for longevity of a career, I'm sure the person that's taking care of them physically is going to have a longer, healthier career than the individual that's snarfing down double cheeseburgers for breakfast. And then let's not even talk about, or let's talk about the other aspect of it. When you retire, you're not going to die 2 days after you retire.
Right. Yeah, cops and firemen.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
How much stress do we go through, and what are we doing to prepare ourselves to live after we retire? And I think I don't want to die right after I retire. I want to enjoy it. Right.
That would seem stupid.
It's
How about this? I keep hearing this one. I've got a lot of friends I've trained hundreds of policemen every year, maybe even 1,000. And I hear this from guys, every cop should be a jiu-jitsu blue belt. And I've trained jiu-jitsu for over 20 years. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, I totally think that's awesome. That's a significant amount of time and resources. And even if like it's an arbitrary thing, this belt color, so somebody gives you this, but even if it's like a low level of the scale, like that's somebody going to, the specialized training 2 to 3 days a week for several years to achieve that. What do they do to protect themselves till they get to that point?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about survival skills basically at that point in time, I think. So I am like, Alex. So Alex and I grew up in the department together a lot. And I know that Alex knows I have one move. I'm a football player. I'm a pick up and dump.
I like that.
I'll sink my hips. I'll pick you up. If your feet are doing this, I know it's game over. I won, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's the move I know. And Alex
if
knows.
You see him out there, to just sprawl.
Yeah. Right. Well, I also know a little bit of wrestling.
Oh, he said he knew one. Now he's holding out.
I'm slow playing, y'all.
Did you wrestle some?
No. So my cousin actually was a state wrestler, and he's years older, and he actually was coach here at Crystal Lake Central. And then
cool.
He's new chair
so you
coach
guys
over
would
there.
Scrap?
So he used to make me smell my own butt all the time, right? I mean, he was bigger and stronger and faster than I was when I was little, but I knew enough. And I think, that's helpful, right? Knowing how to tackle someone, knowing how to, defend yourself on blindside and all that other type of stuff. But yeah, I think just having a good sense of body awareness in positions like ground fighting, that's huge. That's very uncomfortable unless you know what you're doing. And I mean, regardless of skill level, if you have an individual that's bigger than you and you're on the ground and they're on top, that can get ugly really, really quick, especially if you're fighting for your life for 5 minutes. And 5 minutes is a very, very long time. So I don't disagree with you. I don't think everyone has to be a blue belt. I think everyone needs to know, like, one, when you're fighting, there are no rules. Let's be honest. I mean, if someone's fighting, they're trying to take a gun for you, there are no rules. Everything's off the table. You do whatever you possibly can to live that fight. But I think if you can use certain skills, leverage, and points of pressure or something to get out of things or to put someone into some kind of submission, I'm all for it.
Why do you think that law enforcement pushes back from these things? Like, I remember your predecessor, they tried to do some stuff, and I think the union was like, nope.
Well, so I think there's a couple.
That was probably you. You were probably the guy on the union at that time. Now
definitely was not that guy. If there was physical activity, I was in. I may not be good at it, but I was definitely.
You showed up to the bargaining table with that mustard stain and said, "Nah,
not on my watch." I think there's a couple different levels to that. I think, really, the majority of it, I think, is a confidence level. No one wants to show up to a training and be in front of a bunch of their peers and show that they're incompetent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's difficult.
I love when your coworkers come to the gym.
It's great, right?
Yeah.
I think some of it has to do with injury prevention. Because, I mean, let's be honest, we've had people get injured in trainings.
Sure.
And that may be because they're not physically fit. They may be because they're just put in a position that they're not used to and their body's not used to, and then they get hurt. So there's a management level on that. And I think, and kind of like the reactions that I'll get with CrossFit. Like everyone's be like, that's so stupid. It's like, well, if you come and do it for 6 months, you're going to say it's not that stupid because you'll see what actually we're trying to accomplish. It's not all about how much can you snatch over your head. It's like, you know, can you maintain 200-meter runs and then can you go do something while you're exhausted, while you're running 180 beats a minute? You know, can you do that? Because I'll tell you what, if I'm in a fight for my life, I want the person that next to me be able to do all that type of stuff. I want to have the confidence in it. So I think, you know, I think perception's a level of that too. I don't think there's a good understanding of what the goal is for this, right? So, I mean, I think the jiu-jitsu world is great for hand-to-hand combat. I also know that if you videotape it, or even if you videotape a guy like me that comes up and a guy that I need to take to the ground, I pick him up and slam on the ground. You catch it on video, that looks awful, right? But
especially in slow-mo.
Oh my God. It's like, no, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. But that's a perception aspect too. How do you balance that? So I think, you know, if you see someone put someone in a chokehold, but it's a submission choke, it's not like you're killing someone.
Vascular constraint.
Yes, sir. Right? But that's not what the public sees.
No.
They see a chokehold. So, I mean, that's, and we all saw how that worked out up in Minneapolis, right?
Or on the flip side, how about a regular citizen, Daniel Penny up there in New York, with that guy in the train,
right? So, I mean, I think that we live in a world that doesn't have a tolerance or an understanding of what that really means because they've never been in it. I'm a big fan of bringing people that are very outspoken on use of force, put them in use of force scenarios and watch how badly they fail. And then ask them, now what do you think, right? That most of them won't admit it, but I think there was that famous one down in Arizona where they had one of the newscasters go down there and do it, and they killed everyone every single time. It's like the dude was just giving you a pen, right?
Right.
But
and he was 8.
Yeah, right. You're in a scenario that you know you'll never die either, right? It's controlled. So I think, you know, changing the perspective on that, you know, but I think you do see a lot more of, you know, more jiu-jitsu type defense tactics that are kind of integrated into
okay, so not even jiu-jitsu. Like my great-grandfather was a Chicago cop. He was actually there when Dillinger was shot down. Yeah. And all those dudes had boxing clubs and catch-as-can wrestling. And like these dudes were like into it. Like they'd get into the garage and like beat each other's head in.
Right. Well,
and that was just like normal.
That was a little bit different back then, though.
100%. I'm not so, but like there's the evolution of like what kind of like firemen, like those guys used to beat each other to be the first firehouse to get to the fire call. Now we have all these other services, so the citizens expect a different thing.
Right.
Like I think my grandfather or great grandfather, like his work involved a little tiny notepad, a pistol, and a club. And he carried a blackjack.
But I think there also was a tolerance for that. Like the public knew that if you were dealing with law enforcement, you did something wrong and you should be held accountable. Now it's, oh, what happened to that poor individual?
So that was the question. So why are we there, right? Like I have definitely been mistreated by law enforcement. And I don't mean like, you know, drug out of my house and arrested, but I mean, even here's an example, like, and you've heard this from a million people, pulled over, being totally respectful, and the dude's just being a total jerk, and it's because he's had a horrible day. And I don't care, right? Like, I don't care because if I go home and I'm a total jag to my wife because I had a bad day, she'd say, I don't care.
Right.
So, like that's just like human stuff. But, like, things have evolved, and in some ways it's like we got so far where, okay, if you're interacting with law enforcement, you're bad, shut the heck up and just take whatever you're about to be dished out to you. So like that's why there was this, I want to see everything, I don't believe anything. Like remember what happened in the little community of Bull Valley where that they were doing all those DUIs and one guy was like, I don't drink, you gave me a DUI, I haven't drank alcohol in 20 years. So he turned it into a vendetta and basically like turned that village up on its ear.
Well, I have a little sticky note on my computer that it says it takes 20 positive incidents to overcome one negative, right? but we don't define what a negative is, because maybe to us it's not negative, but to someone else it is, and how quickly that can spin up. And I mean, so what we're talking about is an expectation on law enforcement that at the end of the day, we are probably correct 99.9% of the time, and we get chastised for that 0.1%.
You think it's that high?
Well, I mean, let's talk about, I get 100 calls a day. How many of them do you think we get wrong? How many complaints do you think I get a day?
Okay, so the complaint is the metric of success.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've never, maybe one time, called the police department and complained, and
Sure.
actually, many times I thought like that was BS, but whatever.
All right, so I mean, all right, let's even go.
I mean, I've had horrible meals, but would never write a review online. I'm just pushing back a little bit.
Yeah, no,
for my taxpayers out there.
But I think the other part though is, like, let's take away traffic. Let's actually do calls of service.
All right.
Right? Every single call for service, I'm gonna make one person happy and one person pissed.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Arrest him. Get him out of here.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do. Why you arresting me?
Mm-hmm.
What did I do? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, really, what we're talking about here is, in a bigger picture, when we talk about law enforcement being right, and when I first started, like 99.9% of the time, we can articulate, if we watched a video, like maybe we don't agree with how he was acting, or maybe his verbal cues,
Okay.
but his decisions that he made were correct. Like, we're not calling in the state
based on policy, based on the law, etc.
Exactly. So I mean, I think with all that, we can agree probably 99.9% of the time we're probably right. We're deemed unsuccessful with that 0.1%, right? So I think that's the issue that law enforcement always runs into, is just the expectation of, of where we're at. I mean, any profession, if you in your job were right 99.9% of the time, I think you'd be pretty happy about it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, if you were a doctor or a freaking mechanic, that
right. But do you think they're 99.9% of the time right?
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty good at my job, but I'd get stuff wrong daily.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we all do. And I think when we talked about, we are just people, right? We talked a lot about people, right? It's just, we aren't perfect beings. We screw up. It's how do we either address the problem? How do we appropriately hold that individual accountable or punish that individual? We talked about, I think a lot of this came from, how can't you get rid of all the bad cops, right? There's steps that are involved, and those supervisors are just so busy, they have to document it. And if they don't document a conversation, it never happened. But I may not document it because the time I was supposed to document it, I got a call and I had to run out of the office. I had to go handle it, and then I totally forgot about it. It wasn't malicious on my part. It was just, I got busy.
I think the challenge for a lot of citizens is, if I am an oil change guy and I put the wrong engine oil in, we bought you an engine. If I shoot you in the face, or cuff you up, or create a situation, I mean, we all hear about things like, how many times does somebody who's in a diabetic state end up being mistaken for a drunk? And that's, you're talking about the human element, right? We can't know everything, but I had a friend that was the undersheriff out on the East Coast. I won't say the name of the community. He came out of the #1 Army Special Mission Unit as a major. The sheriff knew him, sent him to the law enforcement academy. So people hated him because there's all these guys like you that spent 20 years there. Now their boss is some, brass from Delta Force. And the sheriff's son gets busted drinking, actually in a squad car with a arrested person in the back seat, pulls into the Sally Port and can barely walk, like, stumbling.
Hot mess, right?
So somehow the undersheriff ends up where this is now his problem, and he's trying to do the right thing, and they couldn't fire this guy. And this is like a real crazy story, right? Where it's the sheriff's son, blah, blah, blah. But you hear about people like this, like, man, you're out drinking, and these things happen, right? Then not like they happen, get over it, but like there are people that are that stupid.
Right.
And I think that's like how is this happen? How does this guy have this job, right?
Yeah, I would not envy that position. I mean, that's just a difficult position, but
getting angry is, I don't die if I get, if somebody mistreats me. I think that was your point. Like, it's nothing, there's no truly horrible outcome. If somebody loses their cool on the side of the road and is a little firm, but if somebody causes a situation to escalate because they misread it, or because they're emotionally charged individual, or because their wife's cheating on them and they can't freaking compartmentalize home and work, like those are problematic things.
And those are issues that we, those are early warning signs that we try to pay attention to. I think we talked about it earlier about, making sure that that officer is well when they come in and well when they leave, right? But that's part of those conversations that are uncomfortable. Even if you're a peer, you're not even a supervisor, you notice, your buddy shows up and you're like, this dude's garbage right now. What's his deal? And do you have the ability to pull him aside and be like, you're garbage right now. What the hell's your deal, right? And try to have that honest conversation. But those are difficult because our job is stressful and it puts us in a lot of bad spots. There's endless amount of books that officers have written where they are sitting in a parked car in an empty parking lot, contemplating eating their gun, right? And that's just not what we want to see. And that's not, fortunately, it's gotten better with the public understanding that. There was a time where the public didn't care. Show up, put the uniform on, do your job.
Why is that? So people listening to this, why is that? Why is there tons of books where dudes have written about an experience sitting in an empty parking lot wanting to end their life? Like what causes that? What's the dynamics involved there?
I mean, you figure the average citizen probably has one traumatic event that they go throughout their entire life, right? Something bad. Law enforcement has one traumatic event that they see every week. And that builds up over time.
Describe what do you mean by traumatic event?
Let's see, a drowning of an infant, a car crash where you see, someone deceased, or just even the day-to-day, when I was in investigations, I was part of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. So I dealt with a lot of child porn. It's not fun looking at child porn day in and day out, right? That's just not enjoyable. And, that compounds. You may be able to handle it, but what do you do to get rid of that? Because you got to go to work the next day. So when you come home, I knew that when I was in investigations, I had a daughter on the way and I had a drowning in Wonder Lake. And it was a young girl that drowned. And part of that investigation is you go to the autopsy. So not only do I have to deal with the drowning of an individual, now I have to see that individual on the gurney in the coroner's office doing an autopsy. And then leaving home thinking that's like my daughter, thinking that could be my daughter, right? And then the next day I have to go into work, right? That's hard to navigate.
Sure.
Right.
I remember hearing somebody who saw an autopsy for the first time and had never been around a dead body, and they talked about it for a year, like you would if you saw a human body cut up in front of you. But I think what you're saying is it's just a matter of fact thing, like a baker's baking bread or a mechanic's changing a starter.
That's exactly it. I mean, so it took me a while to figure out, but we've had 2 recent line of duty deaths at the office. And Dwight was in 2016 and Jake was in 2019.
Both good dudes.
Both of them good dudes. Jake was my partner in investigations and Dwight was a guy that I work with on midnight shift, right? So when Dwight passed, we caught word and we went to the hospital where he was at. And I got there, I was a sergeant in investigations, and one of the bosses like, hey man, hold guard, because you stand guard on your fellow officers, after they died, you make sure that you're with them all the times until the funeral, right? And I walked in, didn't realize where I was going, walked in the room, and didn't realize that Dwight would just be sitting on a hospital bed, right? That's not easy, seeing your friend, coworker, laying on a hospital bed, lifeless. That lives with you. And then same with Jake too, right? And I think understanding that type of stuff really, really affects you. It may, we can all box it up and put it in the back of our head, but
it's there.
It's still there. And sometimes it just rears its ugly head and you may have, I don't want to say a panic attack, or you may have something going on. It's like, the hell was that I just went through, right? And not understanding that
it's little drops in the system. It's something in there that, it
messes with you, right? And, teaching our young officers that there's no way around it. You're going to experience it. But what are we doing as an agency to make sure that you can get through that? You know, what are we providing? You know, what kind of support are we providing? What kind of education are we providing that individual? What resources are they doing? Because, you know, back in the day when your grandpa was at Chicago PD,
Bourbon.
right?
Yeah,
Right?
bourbon. Yeah. And like dilaudid or something.
Right? But it was just different.
Yeah.
It was just different. And we live in different times. And
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just, you know, I think we've gotten better on how we're trying to take care of our staff, but it's made things more difficult too.
People say, like in the old days, like men were men and they just dealt with it. But I've read countless stories of guys. One of them, World War II vet. The story, he killed himself, and the neighbor that came and found him, I just read this recently. It was with his service, not his service rifle, but he had like bought one from like the CMP.
Surplus,
Yeah. And this was like in 1950.
Sure.
And brains on the living room ceiling, and his buddy that he was in the army with was also the next door neighbor. Their kids all played together, and so he like had to like clean up his buddy's brains.
Crazy, right? What kind of trauma is that guy getting now?
Yeah,
that he's wiping his buddy's brains off the ceiling.
Mm-hmm. Just trying to make it look not so horrible by the time the kids came
right.
home. But those things are not indicative of just our modern world.
Right. I think we're just paying more attention to it.
Yeah.
We're giving it more. So I think, I mean, that fits in that wellness. You know, how are we trying to take care of our staff so that they don't get to that point?
And you probably don't want to go home and just dump that on your wife. Or
it's the worst.
Yeah.
I never told my wife anything.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell her anything. I think that, you know, I found a place in, you know, the fitness world to be kind of like work it out through the fitness world, throw some weights around, get that reset, and then come back.
How would she say, or what do you think she'd think if she hears you say it? Like, why would you never tell me anything?
Well, we've had those conversations, and, you know, it's hard because, you know, you don't want to burden. You don't want to have your spouse worry about you. Looking back on it, like I've done a lot of stupid stuff on this job where after I do it, it's like, man, that wasn't really intelligent. Am I hanging out of a car window trying to apprehend a guy where all he has to do is throw it and drive and drag me down the road, right?
Sure.
But we do it. So, you know, that's also selfish of me not to want to tell my wife so she doesn't have to worry. Who am I to tell her what she needs to worry about?
Sure.
But I think that's just like the culture that we grew up in. But I do think this generation's a little bit better at being probably more open about what they see and what they do, which may cause them like have more reaction to what's going on because now it's out there. It's not just tucked in the back corner waiting to come out. It's just always there. Again, I don't think that's bad. It's just a different way that we have to do things.
Seems like the global war on terror, all of the medicine that came out of that, the EMS, the trauma medicine, TCCC stuff, and then all of the PTSD studies. And now, I don't know if you're up to speed on some of this stuff. It's pretty scary, actually, because I'm around it. They're talking about just being exposed to small arms fire constantly as like little concussive blasts to your brain, causing micro traumas, being on ranges.
Totally.
You know, their DOD's starting to look at some of these things, which causes effects of like depression and you know, some of the stuff that somebody be like, I didn't do anything crazy. I don't know why I feel this way.
Totally. Well, I mean, I think of all the days in my football days, how many times I hit something on my head and just...
Yeah, there's tons of stories of that.
Like,
but now that stuff's being studied.
Right. Now we're paying attention to it, which I think is good, right? Because if we recognize that, why did this guy go crazy? He seemed like a normal guy his whole life, but he was a range instructor, like you said, right? And it's like, oof, what are we doing to try to help them with that? And I mean, even now the treatments are kind of scaring people a little bit, like we're talking about psychedelics to use for PTSD. And I think if there's good ways that we can do it, we have to be smart about it. But, you know, I think that's just, if you would have said that 15, 20 years ago, they would have been like, get out of here. We're not giving someone psychedelics so they can help themselves out. It's just another thing that's just constantly changing that we have to adapt to, understand, not be emotional about, get good data about it, and try to figure out and try to move forward with it if we can.
What's some things that you would tell the viewer, listener, that they don't know about police work that maybe they should? Because what I just heard you say is our job's hard and we see bad stuff. I'm
Did
just
I
kidding.
sound like that?
No, you didn't. No, I mean, that's something. My friend Paul Sharp, he was an Elgin copper. His brother is here in this town. Good buddy. Paul said it the other day, you know, like somebody posted something. I don't remember where it was, but it was basically like, it's your job, shut up, do it. It's no different than the rest of us. And Paul's like, no, it is. And he basically said what you said. He's like, it is. Like, and there's only a few professions that understand that. Like, maybe even like a vet tech that has to kill dogs every day. And,
Sure.
you know, I mean, that's not the same as a kid, but that's still like just those little tears to your soul over and over again. Like, you've got a coworker that's a friend of mine that, like, he one time told me, he's like, I don't want to see any more of that stuff. I just don't want to see those pictures. Like, and I'm like, what'll happen? He's like, I don't know. I don't want to look at it anymore.
I think the best way I can explain it is that, you know, the public, the public's expectations are extraordinarily high, and rightfully so. And I guess on an analogy, law enforcement is the butcher. We do all the work that no one wants to do, but they want that finished product, right? And they don't want to know how it's done. I don't want to know how the sausage is made. But when I throw that on the grill, it better taste good and it better be right. And I think that, you know, we talk about law enforcement has rules. Bad guys don't. It's very difficult to go into a game where one side doesn't have rules and the other side does.
It's a good point.
And that sometimes it just doesn't look humane on how we address things. But at the end of the day, we have to do what we need to do to stop a threat, to protect others and ourselves. Because at the end of the day, we all want to go home. And I think that if individuals are willing to look at an incident in a non-emotional state and use the information that the individuals that were involved had at that moment, not next day, not a week after, at that moment.
Not on 8 camera angles.
100%, right? If we could be honest about that, then I think we can change things.
So you mean you expect me to put myself in your shoes?
No, actually I don't. I don't expect anyone to be in anyone else's shoes because I don't think that's fair.
Okay, I like that.
I think that if you just listen to what that individual says who is in those shoes and take that as a piece of data along with everything else and weigh that, I think that's different.
I like that.
Yeah.
Why should people pay attention when a sheriff race is going on in their community? And what things should they be looking for and asking?
Oh, that's a good question. I was not prepared for that one.
But you just, you know, speak from your heart.
Yeah, no, I think...
and we didn't have any conversation about anything.
No, he didn't prep me. This is nonsense.
I don't work for you.
I think really at the end of the day is knowing what your community needs are. Right? If you're an individual who lives in a community and the sheriff is responsible for the safety and security of the community. So if you ask that sheriff questions about the community and they can't answer it, they're not the right guy. You want someone that has some knowledge of the work. I think this job is not for anyone. It's pretty unique. It's pretty specific. For me, it was my 18 years of law enforcement experience in the county that I was, you know, I served the county that I was running for, right? So I've had the experience. The other, for me, it was, you know, I'm entering a political world, and I hate the fact that the sheriff is a politician by nature, but you don't want a politician. You want someone that, you know, can admit when they're wrong, and has the ability to articulate, you know, their ideas to a community, give the vision and mission that they want to do, and not play these pandering games. You know, I got asked a lot when I was running about, you know, are you a constitutional sheriff? I would say, I don't even know what that means, right?
I don't think anybody that asks it actually does. They want you to say that you'll defend me from the governor or the federal government.
Right.
And like, well, what?
And it's like, I don't know how I can give you my word that I can.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do the best I possibly can to make sure that when you are in your home, you're safe. When you go from point A to point B, you're safe. When someone acts a fool, I'll be there quickly and take care of it, right? But I don't think the problem is that gets so distorted and it becomes social views, and then
The way I see it, if I need you to defend me from the federal government, we have
other
bigger
problems that
problem.
we have other problems, right?
We're taking the freaking kayak up the creek to go
kidding,
hide or
right?
something.
You're finding that county in Wyoming that only 2 deputies are in, right?
Yeah, we're in trouble.
But I think a good understanding of what the job of the sheriff is. It's not to enforce federal laws, right? My job is state laws, work with my federal partners that I can to ensure that they have the ability to do what they need to do, work with my local partners and make sure that they have the ability to do the work that they need to do, and somehow balance it and make sure that the needs of the community are somewhere in between.
On that constitutional thing, though, I think it is valuable to the point, like Cook County had a sheriff who actually threatened me with legal stuff a few times only because I challenged something that he was doing in Cook County. And like he was basically doing things like our governor, this is 18 years ago, 15 years ago, that were just completely illegal.
Sure.
And it was like, well, if you don't like it, I'm the sheriff, come, do something about it. I think that's a real scary thing when somebody wields that level of authority.
Well, I think in a day and age where the some of the popular things, depending on what side you're on, is, this no kings nonsense that we talk about.
Oh yeah.
I think that if you have an individual who thinks they're a king, they're not going to be a good person for, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on. But ask them, if you're in a room and you don't agree with someone, are you going to allow them to speak, or are you going to push them off? And I think, if they say, well, if they don't agree with me, they're out. That's the most closed-minded thing you can have. I think you have to have someone that's willing to sit down at a table and have their adversaries sit across from them at the table and challenge them. And if they're unwilling to accept those challenges, for me, they're out. It doesn't, that means that someone's not confident that their ability to explain their position, explain when they're being challenged of what that means, and then at the end of the day, shake hands and walk out the room without stabbing them in the back as well.
Sure.
I don't have to agree with everyone. I don't agree with a lot of people that I deal with, but I give them an opportunity to talk. I try to hear them out. Sometimes I actually, will leave shaking hands and becoming, good friends in it. I've had a lot of experiences with that. And then I get challenged by my own party of why I'm even listening to another party. But that doesn't make sense to me. The role of the sheriff, when you knock on the door, when you go to a call, you don't ask them what party they're part of, because you're going to treat them differently on how you're handling that call. It's a political job by nature, but our job is to, hold people accountable when they do wrong and treat people fairly. And the expectations of the people in the office is the same. If they screw up, we hold them accountable, and we expect them to treat people fairly.
I dig it.
It's not rocket science what we do.
But people can die.
Yeah. Well, but that doesn't make it rocket science.
No,
that
I'm
makes
just saying, though, it is
to train. We can go back to training, right?
Yeah.
That's the importance of it. I think my I don't want to say expectation, but my goal of the agency is when you show up to a call, you've done so many reps, you already know how to handle this call in your head. You're just acting. You're not trying to figure it out as you go. Going all the way from handling a mailbox complaint, where it may not seem really, really important to you, but that person called you. So how are you showing up and saying, what's going on? Mailbox, like, seen this before, man. What can I do for you, right? As opposed to, all right, so what do you want me to do about it, right? That just doesn't make sense. It's super easy. Or going to a call where you got a call of an individual that's stabbing people in a house. You're the first person to show up. What are you going to do? Are you waiting for help? Or are you going to go in and address the situation? And how confident are you to know that when you kick that door, you're in mode. You're locked in. You're not looking through this. You're looking through this. And you have the confidence to be able to do it. Those are two very, very opposite ends of calls. And the expectation is to be able to be a master to do everything in between. And it's difficult. But I think, as long as we're giving people the tools to do it, I don't think that's rocket science. I think that's repetition.
Sure, I dig it. Every time we do one of these, I ask people, if you never meet the people that just watched or listened, what would you leave them with? Anything you want. If they never see or hear your name again.
Yeah. I think the simplest thing is just be good human beings, right? I think that we talked about earlier, we have a very, very short amount of time on this place. There's no reason to be angry. But I think if you have individuals that you don't agree with, challenge them in a way that is respectful, and then hold them accountable for it. And then hold yourself accountable for the same thing that you're holding someone else accountable for.
I dig that. How about righteous anger? Is that okay sometimes?
It's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine, right? I think as long as I have no problem with righteous anger. I have no problem with anger. I have a problem when someone else is put in a position where they have to defend themselves on righteous anger. Right? You can have righteous anger, but if you put someone else in a position where they feel they have to knock you out because of your righteous anger, is that righteous anger, or is that now you're stepping over the line? Which is hard, because when you're in righteous anger mode, I think you can't, that's very hard to contain yourself.
That makes sense.
But I think anger's good. I think we need a little anger, right? It shows passion. But having some self-control while you're angry is the challenge.
I dig it. I hope that you guys dug this. I have been wanting for the last hour to show you this rhinestone Cowboys boots here.
So we're doing this?
Yeah, we are. Look at that.
Yep.
Look at that.
There's no rhinestone on it. Unbelievable.
I appreciate you taking the time to come out and visit. I learned a lot. I hope you guys did too. If you enjoyed it, tell us in the comments. If you live in this county, consider voting for him if he decides to run again. I think you're gonna, aren't you?
I'm running again. Yeah, I'm up right now.
You're up right now. Well, then there you go. Go figure out how to support him. Be well. Don't be dickheads. Tell somebody that you love them. Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com.